I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have 7:34. I'd like to ask everyone to stand for the pledge. Hand over heart. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we make a motion to dispense our regular business, I just on behalf of the board, I want to welcome congratulations to our Assistant Superintendent for Business on the recent birth of her grandson, Lucas. Congratulations. Your first grandson. Congratulations on behalf of the board and the district. With that, can I have a motion, please, to dispense of the regular business of the meeting tonight for the purposes of Public Budget Forum 2. Motion by Trustee Maselli. On a second? Trustee Deltato. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the Assistant Superintendent, who is grandmother, Tony Meliambro.
Hello. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. So to begin, I'd like to say that we're happy to report that there have been no cuts to any programs. And in addition, we are able to enhance the number of the programs based on input that we received at Budget Forum 1 and also other conversations during the year. We have added part-time social workers at the middle school and a bilingual social worker at the high school. These positions are in place now, but they weren't in this year's budget. They were added during the year, so they're budget additions. We are going to add robotics programs at the elementary and middle school. We provided for advisors. There was an overwhelming request for investment of the robotics program in Budget Forum 1, and we responded. The Teachers College Reading Program has begun some professional development. We're expanding it into a writing program. This is taking place, it's beginning at the end of this year and really in full swing next year. We have also added money for advisors for clubs at the elementary school. There are requests out now for areas of interest among elementary students. And based on that, we'll decide which clubs get put in place for next year. There has been a lot of mindfulness training at our schools over the past year or two, and there's a pilot program at the middle school now. So those are the enhancements for the year. On our facilities projects, we have a capital appropriation this year of $2.5 million. That's $800,000 higher than last year. This year in our budget, our last debt payment occurred, our long-term debt payment occurred. So since that payment dropped off, it made the most sense to increase the capital budget at this time, and it's very much needed in the district. We have a number of projects that we need to take care of. So since the long-term debt and the capital appropriation are exclusions in the tax cap formula, if you take advantage of adding to the capital budget in the year that the debt falls off, you have no negative impact. So that's what the board has decided to do. We have hired new architects as of last month, and there are a number of projects that they have begun design work for, and they're preparing to submit or have already submitted plans to the State Education Department. So these are the potential projects that will be worked on over the next year or two. The board will be able to decide exactly which ones get done once the approvals are received, when bids are done and things like that come into place. But these are the potential projects that can be done over the next 2 years that the architects are looking at. Just to briefly describe them, the gym floor at the middle school, high school, there's maple flooring that can no longer be restored by sanding or refinishing. The LVI West and South gutter replacements are due to deteriorated copper gutters that are leaking and they have to be rebuilt to prevent water intrusion into the buildings. At A&P, the floor tiles had a failed moisture mitigation system under the tiles, and they have to be completely removed and replaced. The middle school wrestling floor, there's also moisture intrusion under the floor. The nurse's office has to be renovated to meet ADA requirements. The locker rooms in the middle school, high school bathrooms, the fixtures and plumbing are original to the building in 1963, so they need to have work done there. And the track has exceeded its life expectation.
Are there any questions on any of those projects?
So since our director of facilities is retiring, who recommended these projects that we have? Like, where does this list come from? Is that coming from him or another?
No, these projects have been discussed and in place with him. They didn't just appear now. They've been in the works for a while. Mm-hmm.
Right, this board and prior boards have put together targeted projects that we wanted to see completed over a period of time. So some of these are coming off of that.
And are those projects available anywhere for the public to see? Is there, say, projection for a 10-year projection somewhere?
Tony, I believe that was made available, right? Those projects were in
And
the
the 5-year plan?
Yeah, we have 5-year plans every year. We do have. Mm-hmm. Okay, there are still some budget unknowns today. The state aid revenue, we don't usually get the final number until April 1st. And we also have scheduling movement that's still going on. We don't have all the CSEs. They're not even begun, I don't think. They take place in the spring, and we find out which students need placements in special services, and of course, any new educational code and compliance requirements. So these things are still unknown, but at Budget Forum 3, we have to have a final number, which we will, and doing the best that we can with all these estimates. So there are 5 major areas of the budget, and the 1,000's general support, the 5,500's pupil transportation, the 8,000's community services, and the 9,000's undistributed we will review tonight. There are handouts that have the condensed version that will be on the screen, and there's also a line-by-line version where we first walk in if you would like that. It will also be available in central office if you want to pick up a copy, and it will also be on the website tomorrow. At Budget Forum 3, we will review all the codes in the 2000 instruction codes. So the first code is the Board of Education 1010, and we have an increase in this code. This current board is very diligent in keeping up with their training and any issues, legal requirements, things that they're supposed to stay on top of. They, as I said, are very diligent. So we've increased the code so that we can provide for the conferences and workshops that they need to attend to stay on top of these things. The district clerk code basically has an increase for salaries. The actual voting costs, and you see in the 1064, the machines and things like that have actually declined over the past 3 years, either remained stable or declined, so we're able to take a little bit of a budget decrease there. The superintendent's office salary, the personnel line did include in last year's budget a part-time clerical person that is no longer, that position no longer exists in the superintendent's office. The budgeted salary, as with all salaries, is whatever is contractually exists for next year. That's the amount that's there. And the estimated actual for the superintendent for this year includes the estimated accumulated sick and vacation payout for the superintendent, and also the salary of our acting superintendent. There was a slight increase in the contract services for memberships and subscriptions for the superintendent. And, okay, the legal budget has remained the same, $350,000 for the past few years. Our legal fees can vary widely depending on how many actions the board may have to be involved in. For instance, we have encroachment issues, sometimes contractual issues, and we also have a lot of student suspension hearings, and they can vary. You can have 20 a year, you can have 2 a year, and they all cost money. The fees themselves have been, could be from under $300,000, which they have been for the past 3 years. We had a high of over $500,000 in legal fees in like 10, 11, and $400,000 in 2011-12. But 350 seems to be an average number, so that's what we continue to provide. The contract services at the bottom is for our public relations service. It's just a nominal fee increase this year. The business office salary increases are by contract. There are about 6 clericals in the business office. It also includes Donna and myself. And the contract services, we do our best. We were able to budget a little bit lower. And the BOCES services that we get are our software, our accounting software, payroll checks, accounts payable checks, and things like that. Auditing services, the fees have remained relatively flat. We have 3 auditors. We have internal auditors, external auditors, and claims auditors, all required by the state. And the contract service that we have is just, we have to do annual financial disclosure statements, and so we have a financial advisor that has to take care of that. Human resources basically has salary increases, and we have kept the budget flat for the other expenses. The BOCES services in human resources are the substitute management system everybody knows as ASOP, and they also have employee assistance programs, and we monitor teacher certifications. The operations and maintenance, this is the facility budget. The top part, the 1620s, are the facilities, and the bottom are maintenance. So the personnel, the first line would be Henry, the director of facilities, his clerical assistant, and all the custodians and cleaners. And they all have contractual salary increases. The contract services is 1624. We've increased mainly for security. We have added some security personnel in response to the climate of the times. The 1621 personnel are all the groundskeepers, and we actually had a slight decrease in personnel there. And we increased those contract services, the 1621.4 maintenance projects. We really do go over budget every year. We try to keep up, but it's an aging plant and needs come up, so we try to increase the budget a little bit each year to respond to that. The first line, district-wide printing, the budget's flat. The second one, you'll see a big increase, contract services. There is a smaller amount student insurance, but the larger increase, over $300,000, is for legal stipulations. This occurs when there are students with very significant academic or social emotional needs that need very specific therapeutic interventions. And their CSE, the Committee on Special Education, will apply to New York State programs for appropriate placements. If they're not accepted anywhere, then council advises us to enter into a legal stipulation for a payment the parent has to agree, and that's where the student will go. We have actually about 6 next year, so it's pretty costly. We usually have closer to 3 or 4. The district insurance premiums, 1911.4. That's our general liability, all the vehicle insurances and things like that. We just have nominal fee increases over the years. They're not experience increases, they're just, our experience has been good. The BOCES administration fee, we contract for a lot of services through BOCES, about $3 million worth, and they do have administration fees. However, when we contract for a service through BOCES, we get reimbursed from the state anywhere from 30, some services we get up to 50% reimbursement for the state. So it's well worth it to have services through BOCES. And the last one, 1989.4, these are the split property payments that we have to make. Some properties are within 2 districts, and if they are, one of those districts actually receives the tax money from the property, but the parents can choose to send their child to either district that the property falls into. So if we're collecting the tax on the property and the parent wants to send the child to the other district that shares the border, then we have to pay that district what we collect on the taxes. It works both ways. We have some that we pay out and we have some that we receive. These are the ones that we pay out.
Can you show the ones you received?
They're in the revenue budget. Okay. And we'll review that next time. The transportation, we actually did an extensive presentation on transportation last week. You can see the numbers have gone down. You know, we've been able to consolidate routes as much as we can. And we also have, we talked about the new program that we installed there, the new software that we look forward to even further consolidations and requirements going into next year. So we have decreases in this budget. And pretty much overall. The contract transportation, these are the Henderson buses. Again, we have route consolidations, and this budget has remained flat. Community services, the 7310s, that's our summer rec program. You can see that we have increases in all the expense lines. However, it's due to an increase in enrollment in the programs, which will also be in the revenue side of the budget, and that's just due to the success of the programs.
Tony,
Yes.
can you go back a page, please? To transportation?
Susan microphone,
I'd like to make the community aware a little bit more. We're spending $115,000 for athletics at Hendrickson.
Yes.
Basically, probably it's because we can't get the drivers to work.
They're doing a lot of private schools, so that the private schools run at the same time as some of the athletic
No,
trips.
but why aren't we doing that since
Oh,
why aren't we doing it?
We
Because
do
our
some.
salaries have
we do
increased
some.
by 3.9%,
Mm.
which is $30,000. And we're farming stuff out for 115.
No, we don't have enough drivers to do them all.
Well, that's what
Right. It's very hard to get drivers.
I know.
It's very, very hard to get drivers. Mhm.
Maybe we should make, I'm sure the young lady that's taken over the department is always looking for drivers.
Actually, she's recruited like 3 already this year, right, Karen? 2 or 3? I
Yeah.
think, yeah, she is on it.
Yes.
Mhm.
But could we, if we had more drivers, could we
Well,
cover
we
that?
have to have the vehicles too, yeah. You know, hopefully with the new program, we'll have further refinements in every part of that.
Just one other question before you
Sure.
go, slightly maybe more for Anthony. Is our field trips budget adequately funded? Are we providing enough experiences for grade levels to go on field trips?
To my knowledge, it is. We have not had any issues with that.
do we have one trip per grade, what do we,
I'd have the inventory to tell you exactly how many per grade level, it does vary. There's also, depends on the building, depends on the makeup. We have high school students who may go frequently on trips, and they have life experiences. You do have grade level trips, you do have a lot of different, you have competitions. So I would say that we have a vast amount of trips.
if there's time for us to adjust this, if Anthony comes back and says, well, maybe we should raise it a little bit or whatnot.
Sure.
It's time for us to make that adjustment between now.
Sure. Okay, the senior citizen programs at the bottom, we've always given $5,800 each to the Locust Valley and the Bayville Senior Clubs for whatever activities they choose. And the big bucks are here in employee benefits. The employee retirement system, which is the retirement system for the non-certified personnel, which would include clericals, custodians, bus drivers, food service. These are, we have no options here. These are the required contributions. But they've remained relatively stable, the employees' retirement system. Depending on the tier of service, it's a different contribution amount, but it's ranging about 14–15%. The teachers' retirement system, happily, we're able to report that that contribution rate will be lower for 1920. It was 10.62 this year, it's going down to 8.86. So we're able to save almost $400,000 in the TRS rate. Social Security, just goes up with wages, of course. Our workers' comp, we've been able to maintain, steady. We haven't really increased the budget on this in years, which is a great thing. We're self-insured for workers' comp. Life insurance and unemployment, remain pretty low. The medical increases every year. This year we have about a 4% overall increase. There are 2 calendar years involved in this budget. The medical insurance premiums run on a calendar year. So John, you had asked me at some point for the increases. The 2019 increase is a little bit lower at 3%, but then next year is projected out at 8 or something, and the years before that have been 8 or 9 or 10%. So, and the annuity benefit, the last line, those are 403B contributions. Some of them are contractual, and some of them are for employees that retire and are able to take a sick payout, and they get a contribution to their 403B. Our debt service, as I mentioned earlier, the last payment on our outstanding bond is being made this year, so we have 0 budget for next year. We have 2 energy performance contract leases that we're paying off. One of them expires in 2024 and one of them in 2032. So the projects, the first one was complete years ago, we're just paying off the lease, that's how it was financed. And the second energy performance contract work will be done this year. And those payments are, it's a flat amount, like with the mortgage, the principal payment goes up and the interest payment goes down. And finally, the interfund transfers. We transfer money to the school lunch fund to subsidize the cost of operating the program, and to the special aid fund, that is for summer programs for special education students. The state reimburses 80% of it, but we have to pay 20% of those costs. So that is a little bit lower than the prior year's budget, and we're estimating the lunch to be a little higher. And as we mentioned earlier, the transfer to capital has increased from $1.7 million to $2.5 million, so that we can get work done on these projects. And that is it for those codes. This is the remaining calendar. As I mentioned, at Budget Forum 3, we'll review all the instruction codes, all the 2000s, and we'll have the final budget summary, the revenues and expenses, and the final tax levy projection. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from members of the board? From the audience? Any questions? Dr. Anderson.
I just The only thing I'll say is a comment, not a question, other than to ask you for reactions, because what I want you to keep in mind is we, at the very beginning, budget form 1, what did we say? We talked about it being something that would be a product of collaboration and communication. What I want you to keep in mind is as you see this presentation this evening, and certainly for budget form 3, does this reflect anything that we spoke about at budget 1? If it does, it means we're listening. So when you see things like expanding robotics, having more clubs at the elementary level, talking about not only paying attention to having more staff like social workers, but building an expanded facility as well, this is mirroring the conversation we had not too long ago. And I want you to know that our budget builders, many of which are in the audience right now, in private, they are not shy about saying, why don't we do this instead of this? We could use more of those, or maybe not such and such, and we go back and forth. But I have to tell you, it's funny, this gentleman over here said, you know, you look excited about the budget. I am excited about the budget because as it's unfolding, I think it is so consistent with the conversations we've had, not only among staff members, but with some community members. So you keep our feet to the fire in that regard. Now next time, we'll have an opportunity to take a look at some instructional lines as well. So we'll really be able to focus in on staffing, professional development, that sort of thing. And we absolutely invite you and bring a friend. One last thing, in terms of the presentations, I was absolutely delighted. Look, whether it's for a week, for a month, for a year, I am so privileged to be part of Locust Valley. I walk around with that big bright white cap with an LV, and everyone says, what's the LV for? I say it's Love the Valley. That's it's Beloved the Valley. And I absolutely love being here, but I'm excited because when I came here, I wanted to make sure that while there may be some things I'm used to doing in a certain fashion, that I also would make sure I pay attention to things that work so well. Apparently, you have a number of presentations. I mean, you're talking about at least a dozen opportunities for any community members to ask more specific questions or to hear things again if the first time through didn't stick. So I will tell you that shortly, probably in the next few weeks, Tony, we'll have, in fact, within the next couple of weeks, we'll probably have that schedule out so you will know when in April and May we will be making presentations. And we will speak to anybody, I don't care if it's over a cup of coffee, and it's a coffee clutch, or whether it's a crowded Coliseum. We just want to speak to people about the budget and share with you why we think it's coming together nicely. But I have to thank the new grandmother for the wonderful presentation.
Sure.
The projects to be submitted for approval, are they all going to be submitted?
Yes, they're all going to be submitted. Some of them have, a couple have been already, but they're all going to be submitted.
What about like the track in the field?
That's been submitted.
Mhm.
That's been submitted.
So as is, I'm just wondering what the cost
So-
difference is.
The cost difference is what?
Well, first, it's supposed to be.
Oh,
keep
no, that's,
dealing with the drainage and keep doing something.
well, we didn't submit a turf.
No, no. I'm just wondering what the cost.
We're just doing the inner track and the drainage on this one
Yeah, no, that's what I figured.
right now.
The underway is deteriorating terribly. Underneath the rubberized mat,
Right.
the
I know it's an issue,
asphalt
and it's
is,
like a bigger issue than I
Sure.
kind of realized, so I know restoration of it probably is temporary. Yeah, it's also not easy enough.
no, it's gonna be
We're
it's
replacing,
gonna be a full replacement of the track.
yeah, the track, and the
The actual
drainage
track.
is all over there.
Right, the track is.
We did engage with a new architecture firm, so they are working on that as well. They'll be looking at a lot of plans, coming back with suggestions as well.
Only because if you do go turf, at some point, I think the mill is not big enough. Existing as it is for
I'm not certain.
so many discussions over
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to say, that wasn't a complete list. It's an example of some really nice things that will happen. It's certainly not a complete list, nor is this a complete process. Somebody asked before, how do you arrive at what projects you do? In fact, we will have constant conversations with the building principals to say, what about specifically, what about your track, your field, your classrooms, your facility? And that goes back and forth. So a lot of things that aren't listed as capital projects per se, in fact, will be part of the ongoing maintenance or the tweaking that takes place every year.
There's also a big question of what youth organizations in the police department.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there's some, I won't get into it. There's some exciting possibilities and proposals that are being put on the table. And that apparently is ongoing. There's another example of why the Locust Valley has some very invaluable partners.
Hi,
Slowly.
Maureen. If what I'm hearing you say is, if you're going to do the track, why not look 5, 10 years in the future at if there was a possibility to have a turf field, would that track be big enough to hold a turf field? So maybe that's something that we can ask the architects to do.
The track is big enough for what
I understand what you're saying, is like, if we're gonna redo the track now, and the future might be, you know, the argument might be, hey, in the future we need a turf field. If it's gonna be big enough, then we're gonna rip up something that we just did 3, 5, 8 years ago?
Or
No.
not do it.
So,
do it.
or not, exactly. So maybe we could just ask what the actual, you know, specs are for a turf field and have the architects just look at that, because I'm a firm believer in not doing things twice for no reason. And, you know, if we can look, it's definitely an active conversation. We've heard it at every board meeting that I've been at since September. So whether it happens or not, I don't know, but I would think it would be prudent for the board to
Almost that's
investigate
something
that.
we can put into Henry's wheelhouse
Sure,
and speak with
absolutely,
the
absolutely.
architect.
Mhm.
Ms. Foley had her hand up first.
Can I just add to this one?
Sure, what's that?
If we're reviewing options for the field, could we review all possible options then?
Ms. Foley?
I'm trying to recall, I mean, I feel like I've missed something. We're talking turf field again?
No.
You're not
Because
talking
didn't this
turf field.
tank the bond
No,
last
we're
year?
not talking
No,
turf
that's
field.
not-
We are not talking
The
turf
question
field.
that's,
The repair was for the track. Maureen's question, did I hear you correctly what your question was?
You did. I'm just
Okay.
saying, if that comes, if that is, go for it, whether it's a bond, whether it's money donated, or whatever, however it might come,
Can we fit
will
it?
the track
Could-
then not be?
Would the track be
Got it.
not usable, or would we have to redo the track in the way future if a turf field ever came to
Sure.
be?
It sounded like we were talking about the possibility of a turf field
No.
in the future.
No,
And
no.
I
just
know
whatever
what-
replacement work we do to the
No,
current
whatever
track,
replacement work
we
we
wanna
do.
make sure that it's large enough to possibly accept a turf field in the future.
Okay,
Usually the track needs to be a
The track needs complete repair from our understanding.
Right, but running around the track once, like a set, so, yeah.
So Tony will take that to him.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Mhm.
excellent.
Sure.
Along with any other ideas that trustee Evans brought up. This way.
All right, can I have clarification, please, on the water intrusion, the Amgard for floor tile replacement, and the wrestling room, replacement? What do you mean by water intrusion, where is it coming from? Is it an ongoing problem, was it a one-time deal? Please explain.
Well, I could talk about the Locust Valley Intermediate School. We had done the gutters on
In the microphone, John.
She's talking about Ambergard Primary School.
She's talking about the gutters too.
The tile replacement
What else?
and the wrestling room floor replacement due to water intrusion?
Oh, okay, no. I had the answer to the other one.
Tony?
Okay, I'll tell you as much as I know and I'll get you more information for next time, okay? On the AMP floor tile, the moisture mitigation system installed under the floor tiles in the new wing failed, and it requires complete tile removal and replacement, no asbestos abatement necessary. And the wrestling floor, moisture intrusion under the sports floor is causing the membrane to bubble and hold water.
Do we know what's causing the water intrusion? Is it an ongoing problem?
I will find out for you for the next meeting, okay?
We're we're actually looking into the material that was used as well. So
Okay.
it's an investigation right now, but
Okay.
we know it needs to be fixed and corrected.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments on what you saw tonight? There's more to come at Public Budget Forum 3, what you saw tonight. All right, so I just want to close up. Again, Dr. Minuso kind of took some of the words out of my mouth, which is great. But there is a list of gratitude. First of all, to our students and parents for their input during this process. They listened. To our teachers and administrators for their careful planning, their input, their feedback, and their overall suggestions to this budget process. And also, most importantly, our central office staff, business office, our superintendent's office, and for all of their work. As promised, there'll be a line-by-line budget, projected budget, which will be made available on our district website
Yes,
and also in the district office.
yes, and there are copies in the lobby in here.
Copies made available this evening.
Mhm.
And on behalf of the board, we invite everyone to join us again on April 10th for Public Budget Forum 3, 7:30, right here in the mini theater. To review the rest of the calendar, April 15th, we'll have a Board of Education meeting at Babel Intermediate School, which will be our final budget presentation and budget adoption. On May the 8th, we'll conduct our annual budget hearing, 7:30, right here in the mini theater. And May 21st, our budget vote, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at our polling places. And we thank you again for your participation. Our next board, yes. The next regular scheduled board meeting is March 21st, yes. Okay. Okay, may I entertain a motion to adjourn? Trustee Henry, second. Second. Trustee Vasselli, all in favor? So moved. Thank you, guys.